Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and joining me once again is my co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind who is not at the latest Chuck E. Cheese redesign. Well, where are you at? What is this? What are these things behind you? Because they are super colorful and they're doing a dance number.
That's actually a really good comparison with the Chuck E. Cheese because blue with the big purple grimace-esque if kind of resembles one of the characters from Chuck E. Cheese that I remember the animatronic that I feel like he played the drums. Do you remember? I don't know the names of the characters at Chuck E. Cheese.
There's a couple of them, but also I'm getting confused with Showbiz Pizza had their own version. And I'm trying to forget who was on what instrument.
I'm going into research mode right now because
Chuck E. Cheese had like a big furry guy that was, I guess, on the drums.
Mr. Munch.
I was going to say Munch. I was going to say Munch. Yeah, that's still in my head. Rest in peace to those classic Chuck E. Cheese characters.
I have been to Chuck E. Cheese somewhat recently within the past year or two for birthday parties because I have a 4-year-old.
I'm jealous. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty jealous, actually. That is one of the things I'm looking forward to once I have kids is to go to Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, these characters do live on, but instead of being animatronics like they used to be, they just have screens around and like interactive games with these characters, but they don't, there's no physical representation of them except for Chucky still comes out on occasion, aka a staff member in a suit. I'm sorry to ruin the illusion for anybody.
I know, but every time you say Chucky, I'm thinking of like Child's Play Chucky. So no, Chucky E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese, yes, not the serial killer doll.
No, definitely not. But in this podcast, we dive into the world of cinema and also old school childhood memories, apparently. We love exploring everything from beloved classics to the latest blockbusters. And yes, today we're on episode 43, which is probably the most family-friendly episode minus the Child's Play talk to date. We got a triple header that's appropriate for all ages. We're going to tackle Thelma the Unicorn, and of course the Garfield movie. But before we get into all of that, we want to make sure you can connect with us online. You can find me on almost every single social media platform at Sean Taj. Nerdtropolis is at Nerdtropolis. And don't forget to visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. There is plenty of news, plenty of reviews between Drew and I. And when it comes to interviews, we got some good stuff. Speaking of Thelma the Unicorn, speak to the cast and directors as well. One of the voice actors is Will Forte himself. Also, one of the directors is Jared Hess, who is going to be doing the Minecraft movie. So I got to talk to him about that. So a lot of good stuff there. And Drew, where can they find you where you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms. You can find me on Letterboxd, logging the movies we're watching. And yeah, it's this, like Sean said, this is a kind of a kids or family movie jam-packed episode, which I'm looking ahead at the release calendar for June. Like we're getting a bunch of kids movies right here in a row with If, and then Thelma on Netflix, as you mentioned, and then upcoming the Garfield movie. And really there's not much in June. So it's like they're getting them out, all out of the way now, although Inside Out 2 comes out in the middle of June. But the amount that is a kids movie, I think is kind of...
Well, you got Despicable Me 4 as well.
Right.
And also, fair warning, please, I'm hoping this does not happen, but I feel like it is. If you got kids, do not take them to Deadpool and Wolverine. Do not. FYI, Wolverine is awesome. Deadpool is awesome. That is a rated R Marvel Studios film. So heads up right now on this family-friendly episode. Just forewarning, please do not take your kids to Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, and Despicable Me 4's 4th of July weekend. So that'll be a big weekend for kids for sure. But we have a month until then. So I guess these kids movies that are out, within the next week are to tide over until then, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. And also don't forget to catch up on past episodes of the Moviegoers Society. Excited we're on the road to number 50. Super exciting on that. And also don't forget to tune into my podcast, Nerdtropolis, not Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents. That was the old one, Drew. It is Real Insights on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course the Nerdtropolis YouTube channel with all my discussions, conversations with actors, directors, a lot of fun stuff coming out as well. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, triple header, Drew. We got If, Thelma the Unicorn, and the Garfield movie. I think we'll tackle the first one as If, which stands for
Imaginary Friends.
that you can see all behind Drew. Um, to be honest, I was expecting a totally different film. And that's not a bad thing. With all the characters you see behind Drew, I thought If was going to be something totally different. It follows a young girl who goes through a difficult experience and begins to see everyone's imaginary friends who have been left behind as their real life friends have grown up. This is a family movie, but I feel like I want to tell parents young kids are not going to really maybe enjoy or understand most of it. I feel like this may be Drew, you might be knowing the ages better, but I feel like maybe 6, 7, and up. I think a little bit below that, the 3 and 4 year olds are not going to have the best of time because it's not this colorful If storyline that you see behind Drew the whole time. You took your daughter to this, so talk about being a parent and taking your kid to this.
So I took her to Garfield. I did not take her to see If.
Okay, so as a parent, then would you, after watching it, would you have taken her to If?
So I have a 9-year-old niece who did go and see If and really enjoyed it. I debated taking my 4-year-old to it, but I was like, she's hit or miss with live action stuff in general. Like she just really likes animated stuff and princesses. I'm glad that I did not take her to see If. So I'll put it that way. I just think she would have been a little bored.
It is really aimed at adults that still have that inner kid inside. Like that's how I felt. I think I was kind of like the target audience for this as well. It's a heartwarming and uplifting film. It really touches a lot about our childhood. I didn't have imaginary friend per se, but just the innocence of childhood is really in this film. It captures the essence of imagination, and it really does give a lot of touching moments. Drew, I think I don't want to get into the spoilers. I don't know if you can get into spoilers, but when they're trying to reunite the Ifs with the adults, I think that's like the best parts of the film. But it also has a great cast. You got Haley Fleming. I think she is the highlight of this film. Drew, move your head a little bit. Let's show off this little dance number that she does, which is spectacular. And that's probably one of my favorite scenes.
I have to keep moving because I don't want to block out.
No, you're good. You can come on back.
The flower that is voiced by Matt Damon in this movie.
Come on back on that. But yeah, Kaylee Fleming with Ryan Reynolds. This is written and directed by John. I always keep forgetting where his S is. Krasinski. I always have to get that ski at the end.
I was gonna say, where do you put it? You said it right, Krasinski.
I don't know. Sometimes I just forget it's ski at the end. I don't know.
Krasinski.
Yeah, or something. But he's a really great writer and director. This is a really personal film for him. It's about his own relationships with his daughter. He's not in it as much, but he's also a big part of the storyline as well. I'm not going to dive too deep into that. But Ryan Reynolds is really good in this. We've discussed this before. Ryan Reynolds is Ryan Reynolds in almost in every film, but I feel like in this film, he's a different version of himself that we're used to seeing on screen, and I really loved it. I think he added a lot to this film, on top of Kaylee Fleming, who really does a great job. But really, the stars of the film, the voice cast, Drew. The voice cast of the film, Blue, who's actually purple, is voiced by Steve Carell. And that's kind of like an office reunion right there with John Krasinski and Steve Carell. And I thought he was great. He does obviously Despicable Me. He's Gru. He does a lot of other stuff, but really great. And I just thought the surprise voice cast was really great. Who was your star of the film?
Oh, my star of the film. Well, probably Kaylee Fleming, as you said, who plays B, the main young girl in it. If you're meaning an If in particular, it's not a huge part, but I think that Richard Jenkins, he plays like an art teacher who looks like one of those wooden art dolls that you would have drawn in an art class, and his voice is so soothing, and I think that he's really good, but it's a smaller part. I like Steve Carell as Blue a lot.
Yeah, well. I love that. You got Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Blossom, and I think even the character, she's good. And I think the character of Blossom is very important too. That was another scene that I was just like kind of melted a little bit when they're kind of seeing who their former friends were when they were children, I guess. But this is a very emotional film, but it does blend humor and emotion really well. Makes it very, very relatable. And there's a lot of nostalgia in this. You know, there's a lot of fun parts of this film. To me, there's a cartoon I grew up loving was Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. And this is almost like the live action version of that to some extent. I really wish we do get a live action version of that cool cartoon on Cartoon Network. But if we don't, this is a pretty good alternative. A little bit of Calvin and Hobbes, style to this. That's kind of remembering those books and kind of the story. Because I think
I feel like tonally, that's probably the best comparison. I like the Calvin and Hobbes comparison.
yeah, and then there's also a movie I remember my mom take me to called Bogus. It didn't do well, wasn't a very good film. It had Haley Osmond. What's his full name?
No,
Haley.
it's not Haley Joel Osment. It's somebody else in it. Is it? Is
No,
it not Alex?
no,
D.
it is him. It is
Linz?
totally him. I think I'm on the. Let's see, Bogus movie. Let's thank our good friends at.
I just Googled bogus and it just gave me the definition for
It's,
bogus.
it's Haley Joel. Yeah, it is Haley Joel.
Oh yeah,
Osment.
you're right. You're right. Yeah.
And Whoopi Goldberg, and it's kind of the same. It's not the same premise, but it's about a kid that goes through a tragic events and then befriends this imaginary person, and that kind of helps him through things. And then at the end, spoiler warning, I think Whoopi Goldberg ends up seeing him actually, like seeing the imaginary person, friend, or whatever you want to call it. So a lot of reminiscent of that as well. I love the visual style of If. I love the special effects. I loved all the creation of the Ifs. They're all different materials, all different, types of animation or different variations. I really like that. And that dance segment that you see behind Drew was really great. And so I just think this is a movie that has a universal appeal, mostly for older kids and obviously for adults. But yeah, it celebrates the power of imagination. So I was surprised. I didn't think it was going to be very emotional film, I guess is the way to put it.
This movie didn't work for me as well as it did for you, unfortunately. And I don't want to sound like a grumpy Gus over here. I guess maybe I was kids movied out by the time I saw this because I had seen the other two movies before this. So first off, some things I agree with you. The way the movie looks, it looks fantastic. It's shot by, I'm going to butcher it. It's either Janusz Kaminski or Janusz Kaminski, who's a frequent collaborator with Steven Spielberg, who shot West Side Story, The Fabelmans, The Post, War Horse, a lot of these movies that look really great. And I thought this movie looked great. It was pretty to look at. As far as the emotional resonance and things, I don't know. I just struggled with it. I felt like at the beginning, I'm going to avoid spoilers as much as I can. At the beginning, there's kind of a montage that's reminiscent of something like the movie Up from Pixar. And it's like, the thing is with If wishes it was a Pixar movie is kind of how I feel. Like Pixar movies work for me, even if they're trying to emotionally manipulate, I feel like they work. And this one just felt a little bit more hollow for me. I don't think you have to have have had an imaginary friend as a kid to be able to relate to this. When you put the plot of the movie on paper, it sounds like something that I should like. It's just something in execution just wasn't clicking with me. And I like John Krasinski as a director from what I've seen so far. Like I really like the Quiet Place movies. I generally like him as a performer. Like I was a big fan of The Office and looking at the movies that he's been in, like typically I like him. His role in this movie I found to be grating as like this super just schlocky father who's constantly, telling jokes and making light.
It was very weird. I would tell you that plot of the film was kind of odd. I kind of overlooked that and kind of ignored it. But yeah, it was very odd of that aspect of the film.
I liked the designs of the ifs. The CG was fine. The twists through the movie I saw coming 1,000 miles away. I thought it was very predictable. And the emotional moments I agree with you that the reuniting the ifs with the adults is probably the emotional part that has the most resonance, but I don't know. I feel like I was just kind of bored by it. Like I was waiting for the movie to hook me, and it just never really did in the way that I would have liked. And I feel like the trailer, it's one of the classic, the trailer showed all the funny parts. I don't think the movie was very funny otherwise. It's really trying to play more with your emotions than it is trying to be funny. That being said, I talked to people, family members that went to see this movie over the weekend, and they're like, I cried, I loved it. And I'm like, okay, so I guess your mileage will vary. It just depends on who you are. But for me personally, I went in really wanting to like this, and I just kind of found myself wondering who it's for, because it's like I said, it's a little bit too slow and boring for younger kids. But I think the older you get, it just depends on how much you'll gain from it. I guess it's like that sweet spot of your 8 to 12 year olds, maybe. But that's a pretty thin margin. And I'm always open for kids' movies and family movies, but this one just didn't do it for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get that for sure. It's a film that I was not expecting to even go this route, and the story it told and stuff like that. The trailers really showcase more about the colorful side of things too, and really focusing on the ifs. And I thought we were gonna get more of that world, but it was very like showing a lot of street level stuff, right outside of the if world and stuff in New York and other things. And um, I don't know. I hope we get more of this though. I really loved all the ifs they introduced, and there's more of them. And I thought the voice cast, you mentioned a couple of them, but like a lot of surprises on that. That was really fun of seeing like a lot of voice cameos of some big names. I mean, even George Clooney is in this. So and technically Brad Pitt is also in
I was
this.
gonna
So
say, did you see the Brad Pitt credit? It's like that's almost like a Deadpool reference too, in its own weird way, if you know what
that's
I'm
actually my
referring
favorite
to.
if. I forgot. I think Keith is my favorite one. He's like that detective style. Like I would watch a series just with that if.
Oh
I
no,
think
Keith is the invisible one
wait.
that doesn't
Oh,
ever
Keith.
speak.
Oh, Keith is the invisible one. What's the name of the what is the name of the detective one?
It's Cosmo, and he's voiced by Christopher Maloney.
Yes, yes. That's my favorite one. That was the one. Okay, yeah. There's a lot you could choose from in this film when it comes to ifs. And like I said, I hope there's more to this. Kind of like John Krasinski has done with his A Quiet Place films, created a couple of things that prequels and then kind of gave it off. Now they're doing a like the origin of it. Maybe set this up for someone else to lead and they can have some fun with it. But I really enjoyed it. I was surprised by it, and it pulls a lot, of your emotions. It pulls a lot of that. But that's in theaters. And any final thoughts about If before I
I
head
was just
on
gonna
to our
say, on the voice cast, is like it is cool seeing all these big names in it, but some of these ifs are like one or two lines and that's it. So I'm not gonna say that like they're wasted necessarily, but it's like it is a big cast for them to just have come into studio and done two lines and then be on their way. Not that anybody was bad. I love hearing them all, but there's a lot of them. I'm like, I would have loved to hear more of the robot voiced by Jon Stewart, or I would have loved to hear more of Sunny the sunflower that's voiced by Matt Damon. Bradley Cooper as a glass of ice water was pretty good, and he gets a little bit more to say at times. Emily Blunt also is the unicorn. She was good and she had a little bit more, but some of the other ones were just so quick that I would have liked a little bit more, but that's there's only so much you can ask for. Yeah, it's just I can't blame the movie for being, it's original movie, original kids movie, which you don't get much of these days. Everything is IP based. Even Thelma the Unicorn, which we're about to talk about, is based on a book. And this is a wholly original film. So like I want John Krasinski to keep doing original stuff, but it's too bad this one just didn't resonate with me in the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah, it has a lot of mixed reactions online, but it is still a solid watch. And you mentioned Thelma the Unicorn, and there's a unicorn in If, so I guess that's the best way to transition to Thelma the Unicorn, which is based on a book, and it's about a pony that wishes to become a star, somehow ends up a unicorn. I mean, if you know the book, it's based on that, and Thelma becomes a unicorn and rises to instant international pop superstar stardom, but at an unexpected cost. This really brings this book to life. That's from the same guy, the Bad Guys movie that we saw. He did those books. I think his name's Aaron Blaby. Brings it to life with some really vibrant animation. I was actually really impressed. This is a Netflix animated film that's now streaming, and I was actually really impressed by them bringing this book to life that looks nothing like the film, obviously. And they decide to enlist in Brittany Howard, who is, a rock star of her own, and brings in Will Forte as well and some other people. And this is a film that I don't know what type of age range do you think this film is for? I think the much younger kids, I think, could really enjoy this one.
Yes, this is one that my daughter did watch. So your 4-year-olds are gonna like this one. Although at the beginning she did keep asking because I don't know if this is like the plot of Thelma the Unicorn. But Thelma the Unicorn is not actually a unicorn, right? Like Thelma the Unicorn's a small pony who through a mishap gets covered in pink paint and glitter and becomes a unicorn in that regard, which launches her to stardom. And at the beginning, my daughter, because the promotional images for the movie, and when you're scrolling on Netflix, shows the pink unicorn. So when the movie started, my daughter's the whole time going, "When's she gonna be pink? Where's the unicorn? When is she gonna turn pink?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. That's why. Keep watching, keep watching." Then finally it happened, and but it held her attention. She liked it. It's
This
a
might
pretty
be
quick watch.
Yeah, and this might be something that you might want to buy the book as well. I think it'd be fun to read the kids the book and then show them the film, kind of connect them with reading and watching the film. And yeah, the film is very colorful. I loved it, and it's full of music, and I think it's great. I think I have a couple of the songs still stuck in my head. But I thought it was a delightful adventure for the whole family. It's definitely for a younger audience. I think also some of the parents will enjoy it as well. It has some really good teaching moments, I think, too. Pretty good voice cast as well. Will Forte, uh, John Heder from Napoleon Dynamite, who is a frequent collaborator of the director himself, Jared Hess, who was the director of Napoleon Dynamite, and Nacho Libre, and is doing the Minecraft film. So that's really awesome. But yeah, it's just an easy, accessible film on Netflix for the whole family. Uh, and just based on a pretty short book, for the whole family that can enjoy. And Netflix needs to be adding more stuff like this because it is a quality animated film for them, I think. So I think the quality of the actual characters, the world they built and introduced is really awesome.
Yeah, I think that this one, it works for a Netflix movie. I can see why. I don't know if the production details and if this is something that Netflix. Yeah, it looks like Netflix acquired the rights to the book and made it. So, it's like this is going to sound negative, but I don't mean it to sound as negative as it's going to come across. It feels like a step above like a direct to video movie. Like it's a solid Netflix streaming movie for your kids. Like it's like if you stumble across a movie you never heard of and you watch it, you're like, oh, that was pretty solid. Like that's how it came across. The music's good. I thought that Brittany Howard, that voices Thelma, was great. Was definitely the star, and she's got a deeper voice that really worked as something different from what you would expect coming out of like a pink unicorn. And that's what I really liked about it. And I think that for the adults, can be a relatively forgettable experience, but kids will like it. My 4-year-old was into it.
Yeah, but also if you're a fan of Brittany Howard's music, and a lot of people are, I think they'll enjoy this because some of the music's pretty good in there. A couple of the major songs. I think like the main song for the film is pretty darn good. And yeah, she embodies Thelma the Unicorn like awesome. I think she was the perfect choice and a unique choice as well. Just like Thelma the Unicorn is very unique. And so this is a great film for the little ones, great messaging also. And I was telling them all, I was telling Brittany, Will Forte, and the directors, I was like, can we get a spin-off series called Thelma and Otis, kind of like Thelma and Louise, and have them like on their own little adventure and kind of make a ripoff of the Thelma Louise film. They all loved it. They said, yeah, let's do something like that. I could see this becoming some type of series. They shouldn't just have this one Thelma the Unicorn film and just move on. I think it'd be a waste. I think Netflix can do something with it as they grabbing these books or other ways they're finding these IPs to contribute. They don't always have to be films. You can make them into a series, just like I said, If should be a series as well. So definitely would be a waste if all this stuff is not revisited.
I agree. Are there any other examples of Netflix animated movies that have gotten sequels? I don't know off the top of my head.
That's a this is
right,
where we go into
putting you on the spot.
Yeah, we all rush to the internet.
We're all Googling.
not really like a good thing. I mean, so you had a lot of things, but like remember they did a Skull Island cartoon. So that's like based on obviously the Kong movie. So like there's that. There's the Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. So like it's different, right? These are based on like big movies from the blockbusters, big blockbusters that Netflix is finding a way to make them to shows. They had that Fast and Furious Spy. What is it called? Spy Racers.
There's
Um,
some that I haven't seen that I've heard good things about. Like I've heard Nimona was good and it was nominated for an Oscar. The Sea Beast I've heard good things about. I have seen, of course, the Mitchells versus the Machines, which is fantastic. I like that they did like Wendell and Wild, which is a stop motion. They brought Henry Selick in to do that, who's like the king of stop motion animation. So I like that they do a lot of different things with their animated movies, or give a spotlight to you know some long time animation legends. So I hope they keep doing that, and I could see them. They need more franchises. I think that Netflix needs more animation franchises. Now that we mention it, film franchises, I should specify.
and they need to
There's a
stick
lot
with
of
it. They need to stick with it because like another example is like obviously some of them are for older audiences, or for like an older age or like 8 to 12. I mean, I think like the Skull Island one is mainly for it's like a TV Y7, I would think is that type of show. But there's also like Pacific Rim The Black, which I think is more for a little bit older audience for like preteens and teens, which is based on the Pacific Rim movies. So there's a lot of stuff they're doing, but they like cut them short. They don't let them live that long. Netflix is very quick into canceling. Oh, what's the? It's called. I'm looking on now the Wizards, but it's called like Tales of Acadia. What was the show that had like all these spin-offs and had their own like mini movie?
I don't
I'm
know.
trying
I don't know.
as I search on the interwebs. Tales of Acadia was an animated series. Troll Hunters. Troll Hunters
Okay, yeah.
had like all their spin-offs, which was awesome. Um, and the Dragon Prince. Those are two really great stuff they go with. So Tales of Acadia, which is the Troll Hunters, is the DreamWorks project. And I need to go back and see like are they still going on? Because they were really cool. They had all the spin-offs, a couple like I think a film maybe, or maybe just a mini series. So they had several stuff for that. So Troll Hunters, and then what was the other one I just mentioned? I totally forgot. Oh, Dragon Prince. There you go. Which is a great one, and that should be returning again for more. And I need to get on Netflix more and see what's happening with those types of things. So they do have it. They need maybe more, or maybe just advertise a little bit more, because they do have some really good animated stuff that they're spinning off and doing some really cool stuff with, especially with the Jurassic World stuff. That's actually really impressive. Camp Cretaceous. Now they have a new one. I forget what it's called, but now the kids from that are teenagers or older. So as long as they keep this stuff alive, they got a lot of good stuff. Yeah, here's the Dragon Prince I just found on here. I try to see if they have anything new. It's still going on, obviously. So Netflix is a good place, I think, for the kids. There's a lot of good stuff there, and for the big kids like myself that I'm watching. What was the last thing you watched on Netflix, Drew? If you can remember.
Other than Thelma the Unicorn,
Yeah, like what's for
um,
yourself?
gosh, I recently watched the Scott Pilgrim animated series, which I thought was really good. I'm trying to think what else. That's the main thing that comes to recent memory.
I think the last thing I watched was that Tom Brady roast. I think
Oh, I
that
did
was
watch that. I watched that. Yeah, I was trying to think of like movies and TV. I definitely watched the roast of Tom Brady. I thought it was actually fantastic.
was an interesting experience, that's for sure. But yeah,
Does
Netflix
not
is
fit in with our kids
no,
movie
but
conversation
but
though.
Netflix offers so much stuff that is for sure. And coming to theaters this weekend, we finally get to talk about this. You can see it got very bad at pointing things out. This guy, my
Oh yeah,
thumb's
I see
going.
him.
Like Garfield popcorn bucket there. I'm actually talking to Mark. I think it's Mark Dindal, the director of Garfield tomorrow.
Oh,
So
exciting.
yeah, and he's done so much. He's been around with animation forever, but known for Chicken Little, The Emperor's New Groove, and and a lot of stuff. But if you really look up Mark Dindal, you'll see he has been a part of so many uh, animated films in some capacity. Especially as an animator and more. Uh, but he decided to tackle this animated Garfield movie. So did you know that this is actually, I think, a 20th century? I don't know. Maybe I Googled it wrong, but somehow it showed that this was like a 20th century almost, or maybe the live action Garfield. One of them has ties to Disney. Disney owns one of them, the
Let's
rights to one of the
see.
IPs.
Yeah,
And
the live action movies were distributed by 20th Century Fox, so those would be owned by Disney now. The
Disney.
live
So
action
so
ones.
live action Garfield is now a Disney owned property that they have the rights to do with, which is very interesting. So now we have animated. So now that's Sony's rights to do. And so I'm actually surprised at what took so long to get the return of Garfield, especially in animated form. I used to watch Garfield all the time. I still do actually. If you go to Pluto TV, there's a Garfield and Friends channel, and I'll have that streaming in the background um, as I work. Also, do you remember Heathcliff?
I do.
That's another one.
I was not a big Heathcliff fan, but I
Uh,
remember the show.
but I grew up a big Garfield fan. That's obvious from reading the comic strips in the newspaper. Like my parents would get the newspaper. I'm like, give me the comics. I want to see. And Garfield was always my favorite. You had the cartoons. You had, um, I do have a CD. It's like the Garfield CD. I don't know if it's a soundtrack of something, but it's Garfield singing these songs, or it's really great music. And there's a lot of good stuff on there. So anything Garfield, I was all about. I think I had some Garfield toys. Obviously, watched the cartoon. Kind of, I love the Bill Murray ones. I thought that was pretty interesting. But now you got the return of a classic, the long-awaited return of Garfield in animated form. Your favorite Monday hating cat, and they decided to go with Chris Pratt, who is everywhere. So the question is, did that make your Garfield experience worse or better knowing Chris Pratt was the voice? Did he embody this iconic cat?
Okay, so I'm going to say yes. The short answer, I'm going to say yes. First off, just some history with Garfield for myself here. When I was very young, a family friend gave me like a box of a bunch of old vintage Garfield books. Like if you remember the books of the 80s, that they were like rectangular and they were full of the comic strips. I had a bunch of them and I read all of them, and I really loved reading the Garfield comic strips. So always been a fan of Garfield. And this, we were joking about this before we started recording, but the new Garfield animated movie is called The Garfield Movie. The first live action movie that came out in 2004 is Garfield the Movie. And of course, who could forget the sequel to that one, Garfield: A Tale of Two Kitties, if you recall, was the subtitle there, which is just masterful. But yeah, I was excited. I wasn't a big fan of the live action. I think I saw the first one in theaters. I didn't even see the second one. I don't really remember much about it. It's definitely not one that stuck with me. But seeing a new animated movie in modern animation that is more true to the comic stylings is way more of my style. And the Chris Pratt of it all, I know that there is a lot of eye rolling now that happens when Chris Pratt gets announced as another animated character. We've obviously had him in 2 Lego movies. The internet just about had an absolute meltdown implosion when he was cast as Mario, which, now having seen Mario, he was fine. It worked. What they decided to do for the Illumination Mario movie, he was just fine. I actually enjoyed Chris Pratt's voice as Mario, and him here as Garfield. He's fine. Like, what do we want from Garfield, really? Like, what do you need from a Garfield voice? He's totally fine, and his voice fits a variety of characters. I'm not hating on it. We don't really need that much special for Garfield here. He's not really doing anything special. He's just being Chris Pratt, but it works for a cat who loves lasagna and cheese. I don't think the bar needs to be that high for who you're casting as your voice.
No, that is true. And I wonder which role he got first. A lot of times there's a lot of talks of, securing someone for a voice role. So, because I feel like the Garfield movie, maybe we knew about a little longer, or just maybe they were working on it much longer than the Mario stuff. Because I think the Mario voice casting, they had maybe went down to a couple people, but I think maybe Chris Pratt, and I'll find out more when I when I talk to Mark Dindal. I'll ask him some questions about when they knew Chris Pratt was right for this role. Also, you have Samuel L. Jackson. So you got some MCU people in this, starring this, and he plays Garfield's dad, Vic. I think they're both great. I think Samuel L. Jackson, which I think he toned it down a bit actually, in this voice performance, which is not a bad thing and not a good thing. I think he did a really good job. I think he brought something unique with his very, noticeable Samuel L. Jackson voice, and it really worked actually as Garfield's dad.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, it's like he knows he's in a kids movie, so he's not being kind of the over the top Samuel L. Jackson shtick. He's just using his voice appropriately.
And
I'd
there's a lot of
say.
heartfelt moments, and like you can feel it, like he's actually trying to play dad, and I think he does a really good job at that. And out of those two, I think there's actually a bigger star in this film that doesn't get enough screen time. I'm not talking about Odie. We love Odie, but John Arbuckle, voiced by Nicholas Holt. Can you believe that's Nicholas Holt? That's our Lex Luthor. Is
He's almost doing like a Michael Cera impression as John. Like the whole time I was like, is that Michael Cera? And when I saw it was Nicholas Holt after, I was like, oh, interesting. He's not just doing his normal voice. Like he's for sure doing.
he created something which actually works
Yeah.
perfectly for John. If you go watch some of the older cartoons and know John's personality, like this is great. I can't believe how they knew Nicholas Holt was capable of doing any type of real voice acting where you actually manipulate your voice and create something brand new. And I was actually very impressed that this is Nicholas Holt. I'm not sure if he's done voice acting in that extent without actually using his natural voice, but nothing was natural about this, obviously, with his, because he's British, first of all. And so it'll be interesting. And now I'm excited, like what he's going to do for Lex Luthor if he's able to really change up things and really dive into the role. I think he was all in as John Arbuckle, and
I'm still sticking with my comparison. It to me it sounds like he's doing a Michael Cera impression, which works for John, to be clear.
no, it does work, but very impressive. And so I need to know if he like was offered the role or he auditioned for it, and it's just awesome. I wish we got more of John. So this story, the only problem,
Yes.
major problem I had with this movie is this, for me, it's not the story I would have told. It's not a bad story, but for Garfield, they do a lot in the beginning of Garfield at home, which is awesome, but it's very montage like, and they have a lot of creativity of how they're like showing us or telling the story, which I applaud them for that. They tried something very different with this film because it is Garfield and you got to be a little different. But I would have liked to see him at home with antics, maybe dealing with a neighborhood bully or Odie's getting bullied. And, there's a lot of stories you can do, but I wanted to see Garfield more at home than on this crazy and wild adventure, But it is, kids are going to have fun. There's a lot of kids in my screening and they all enjoyed it. I had fun, but it just was it not your typical Garfield trope once he left the house?
So a few things here. You mentioned John was one of your favorites and your standout. My favorite, there's a Shar dog in this movie who's like a big brute muscular dog, and they use the skin folds to really great comedic effect throughout the movie when he punches and the skin sags down. They're they use his skin to get out of a pinch later on in the movie. I won't say how or why, but I saw it coming when it happened. And when he starts talking, I immediately was like, "Is that Roy Kent from Ted Lasso?" And sure enough, it is. It is Brett Goldstein voices this dog, which was a standout to me. The story, as you mentioned, I agree with you. And here's the comparison I'd make, and this is a weird one, but bear with me here. The most recent Jurassic World movie, right? Jurassic World Dominion. Jurassic World, a franchise about dinosaurs. That movie, a plot that largely revolved around locusts. And that was a strange choice. And the Garfield movie, not Garfield the movie, the Garfield movie, makes a choice to have a majority of the plot. The trailers are more about like Garfield and his daddy issues, which, yes, that's in the movie. The main plot of this movie is reuniting a bull with a cow. Like that is the plot.
It's a
of the
high
movie.
stakes heist at the end of the day. It's almost well, yes, it's not reuniting them, but also it's very like Ocean's 11 or whatever you want to call it, but this heist they need to figure out to do. And so yeah, it's definitely not your typical Garfield story.
But I'm with you. I could have seen more of Garfield at home and the antics, you know, m- maybe some more of the other supporting characters from the Garfield world, like Nermal or Arlene, these other cats. Nermal actually does, slight spoilers. Nermal makes a brief appearance at the in the end of the film. But the parts of the movie I liked the most were Garfield sitting in his giant recliner chair with big speakers coming out of it, sneaking around to get midnight snacks, watching cat flicks in the movie, which is cat videos on demand. Those are the things Garfield does. Those are a lot of the big laughs I got. It becomes this big heist adventure, like you said, which was fine. It keeps the movie moving. And this movie is surprisingly a little long. Like it's almost 110 minutes with credits, which is long for a Garfield movie. But that being said, I saw this one with my 4-year-old. She giggled a lot at this movie, which automatically bumps it up in star rating for me. It's a pretty ordinary animated kids movie, but I enjoyed it maybe a little bit more than normal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun moments, and it's Garfield. There's you gotta love Garfield. So I'm hoping we do get a sequel. I think they're trying to do a series with this Garfield, but if not, they need to be. I just want to see Garfield at home with a lot of antics. Maybe um, John's dating life. That's a big part of the comic strip too, and a lot of other things. I just think there's so much you can do. And maybe a new neighbor moves in that has a pets or something, and there's so much you can do.
Yeah,
Uh,
justice for John. We could get more of a John focused story. His storyline in this is really just my cat ran away. How do I get my cat back? But he's at home just on hold pretty much the whole time. Which is fine. But when you have Nicholas Holt doing an interesting voice, I'm like, yeah, I kind of want more John.
yeah, and more baby Garfield actually too. There's a lot to be baby Garfield and baby Odie. There's something there too. There's a lot you can do, and you don't have to put out this crazy plot, this big heist or anything like that to really satisfy fans. I think just letting the characters be themselves and what truly made the comic strip and the cartoons really special.
Early in the movie, Baby Garfield absolutely wreaks havoc on a mom and pop Italian food restaurant, and that sequence could have gone on for another 20 minutes, as far as I was concerned. Just like Baby Garfield, just eating them completely out of food. Uh, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, a lot of physical humor, a lot of slapstick humor as well. I think kids and adults will really like that. It's not a home run, animated film. There's room for improvement, but I'm just glad Garfield's back, to be honest. And I think they did a good job with all the voice cast, and everyone's familiar with this, Monday hating, lasagna loving cat. He's been around forever, but it's gonna be a good family outing that entertains people that haven't actually been introduced to Garfield wherever they've been living, and longtime fans of Garfield. So I'm glad Garfield is back, and Chris Pratt does a good job. Maybe he'll voice another animated character next. I want to see what they cast Chris Pratt for next. Do you have a favorite out of the three films?
Oh, out of the three franchises that Chris Pratt's
No, no,
in.
no, no. Sorry. If Thelma the Unicorn or
Oh,
Garfield that we just talked about.
that question makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Of the three, the Garfield movie was probably my favorite.
Uh, Toss up for me. Garfield, I'm a big Garfield fan, but I think If really landed the most for me and really hit me in the feels really, really hard. Uh, but yeah, there's something to watch for everybody. There's two films in theaters. Well, one's coming out this weekend. Garfield's this weekend. It's already in theaters now. And Thelma the Unicorn is now on Netflix. So tons of family friendly content to enjoy as a whole. Drew, what are we looking forward to next? I mean, I really just want to find a way to time travel, go to July, and just talk Deadpool and Wolverine.
Don't get me wrong. I am really, really, really looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine. I almost said Deadpool versus Wolverine, but it's Deadpool and Wolverine. My most anticipated movie of the summer comes out this upcoming weekend, and it is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So I am hyped for Furiosa.
And speaking of, for everyone listening right now, whenever you are, you have time. we're doing a giveaway on our Instagram. If you go even to nerdtropolis.com, there is a Fandango ticket giveaway for Furiosa. We have several codes to give away to redeem for passes. So just go to our Instagram. Our handle is at Nerdtropolis or nerdtropolis.com and enter the giveaway for free tickets to see Furiosa. I mean, this is a rarity. We do them once in a while, but we got several pairs of passes to give away regardless of where you live. If Fandango has a theater listed on their website near you, you can enter. This is the way you can catch this. Thanks to Nerdtropolis and Fandango and the movie studio Warner Brothers. So definitely make sure you do that. For all you tuning in, don't forget to be subscribing to our channel, visiting nerdtropolis.com daily. We have tons of content coming your way. We got Instagram, X, Facebook. But Drew, once again, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen, all the different social media platforms, and weekly on the Moviegoers Society.
Yeah, summer is almost here. Tons of movies to be talking about. But thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoers Society. Once again, I'm Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we'll see you at the movies.